So good morning, everybody. Welcome to another of our lockdown series of webinars. My name is Steve Charman from ActionCOACH here in Birmingham, and it's great to have Omar Rashid from the HR department joining us this morning. Good morning, Omar.
Morning, Steve. Morning, Glenn. Thank you.
Great to have you with us. Yes, I've got my colleague Glenn Cameron. He's in the background doing the technical wizardry, and he'll be monitoring the question and answers that are coming in through the question and answer box within the Zoom software. If you are, we realised that a lot of our listeners are actually logging in via Facebook. If you are logging in on Facebook and listening to us on that platform, it'd be great to know where you're listening, whereabouts you're based today. Please put in your contact details, and also if you're listening through social media and you've got questions, if we can't get back to your question straight away, please put it in the comment box, and I guarantee that either myself or Omar we'll be back in touch with you directly to answer any specific questions you may have around, we just were talking about the F word, around the furlough or around key steps you feel you might need to take or should be taking in your business right now to make sure that you can survive and thrive into the future. So hopefully you're sitting comfortably, you've got your pens and your notepads ready to take a few notes, and I'm sure you'll get something out of the next hour. We'll try and keep it to the hour as always, so that by 12 o'clock you can go and grab your sandwich, get a coffee and crack on with the rest of your day. So those of you who have met me before will know that I'm a big fan of Blackadder, and I always love the fact that Baldrick always says to Blackadder, "Don't worry, sir, I have a cunning plan." And in all the presentations we've been giving and all the webinars over the last 3 weeks, the key message is about having a plan to how you're going to drive your business forwards, how you're going to manage your staff, a plan around your marketing. And so it is really crucial right now not to panic. I know we're in a time of constant change, but to find that information, to have a plan, and to think about how you can drive your business forwards and manage your staff right now. And I'm sure Omar would agree in terms of staffing. It's equally crucial to think about the changes you need to make and how you're going to manage your staff at this time. So just in terms of the agenda this morning, I'm going to do a few slides around mindset. I'm going to then talk a bit about 11 key steps that we at ActionCOACH have been sort of suggesting you want to consider or take in terms of enabling your business to survive and thrive into the future. Then I'm going to hand the reins over to Omar, who's going to tell us all about everything we didn't know about furlough and much more, I'm sure. And then we'll both be talking about the support that our organisations can give to you going forwards, and then be looking to see what actions you're going to be taking as a result of what you've heard this morning. We will also touch very briefly on what government support is available, but I know that Glenn in the background will be putting a link to our website, putting a link to HR department's website as well, and also uploading a document that we've put together of all the government support that's available right now for you and your business. So we'll put those in the Q&A boxes, and when we put this webinar onto YouTube, onto our channel, we'll also make sure that all those contact details are in there as well. So if you've not come across ActionCOACH before, I just wanted to introduce who we are, and then I'll let Omar do the same for HR department. So ActionCOACH is one of the world's largest coaching firms. We've got more than 1,000 coaching offices in 80 countries. And I met with Brad Sugars in Edinburgh at the beginning of the year, and I said to Brad, well, how big do you think ActionCOACH will be? What's your ambition? And he said, Steve, I want ActionCOACH to be in 109 countries. And I thought, that's quite a specific number. Why 109? So I asked him that question. He said, because McDonald's are in 108. So he's got this real drive to grow ActionCOACH, and a real belief that ActionCOACH can provide, and the vision to create world abundance through business re-education. If you've not come across Brad before, he's a co-founder or the founder and entrepreneur and a serial author of business books. I'd go and Google him, look him up on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Facebook, and connect with him. He's got some great material out there right now to help support your business. We coach over 15,000 businesses every week, and Glenn and myself and other colleagues are responsible and sort of run the franchise in Birmingham, and we just have a real passion for reaching out to businesses right now, particularly when we're struggling, when we're all in the same boat. We can do this together, but we want to share our expertise and our knowledge of working with other businesses across a range of different industries to support you. People often ask me, well, what is a business coach? And very briefly, because I want to make sure Omar has time as well, but very briefly, I use the analogy of a sports personality. If you think of any sports team or sports personality, they've got to where they are because they've had a coach supporting them along the way. That coach hasn't taught them how to play rugby. Think of Eddie Jones. He doesn't teach a rugby team how to play their game. They can already play it to a really high standard. What the coach does is come along and give them the different perspectives, give them the advice and guidance before the game, during the game, and help them take away some learnings from that game to improve their performance and to improve how they can play to the very best, and not just play, but dominate in their chosen field. And that's what we want to do with you and your business. Omar, do you just want to share a bit more about what HR department do generally?
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Yeah, so funny enough, we also, just like ActionCOACH, are a franchise. Not as ambitious, not wanting to be, outdo McDonald's. But at the moment, we operate in obviously UK, Ireland, and Australia. So kind of international. But essentially, we're a franchise for small businesses to outsource all of their HR needs. So rather than look to recruit internally, or even if you do have someone internally but want that additional support, that's what, as a franchise, that we are set up. I do look after part of the Birmingham franchise and the territory, and then I've got also other licensees that cover other parts of the Birmingham and outer areas as well.
Great, thanks, Omar. And what somebody said to me the other day is, with HR, it's one of those areas where you need to find out the information before you jump in the deep end. And I guess that's what you're there. You're there, the go-to people, to find out the best way to deal with a challenging situation before you jump in the pool at the deep end.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, couldn't put a bit myself, really.
Yeah, great. So in terms of what to expect from today, we've got sort of a webinar of 2 halves. Omar's going to do quite a bit around furlough. I'm just going to do a few mindset slides and talk about the 11 steps that we at ActionCOACH think will be beneficial for you to consider in your organisation right now. But in terms of what to expect, there's a light bulb on the screen there. And I often talk about BFOs, and you're probably wondering what on earth is a BFO? And it's that sort of aha moment, the blinding flash of the obvious, when 2 bits of information you probably knew already sort of are connected in your brain, and they sort of come together, and you think, actually, in the current climate and how I'm operating my business right now, that makes sense. And you make 4 notes and write that down. And talking about making notes, I don't know how many of you are sitting at your desks or at your dining room table or on the sofa right now with a blue or black biro. I'm just going to really appeal to you now to ditch the blue or black biro and crack open your kids' colouring crayons or a pack of felt tips and sort of doodle on your notes. I remember when I was at school or university, I used to get told off for doodling on my notebook. But actually, doodling is a great thing in terms of annotating your notes that you're going to be taking during this webinar or any educational input you're benefiting from. We have 2 sides of the brain. One is a very musical, artistic, colourful side, and the other side of the brain is sort of black and white. It's much more numerical, methodical, and logical. And the reason I'm asking you to get out some colour pens and crayons is to help your brain, the 2 sides of your brain, work better together. So when you come back to your notes after the long bank holiday weekend you're going to be enjoying tomorrow and Monday, the notes you take from Omar and myself today will make a lot more sense when you come back to them later on. So if you can, crack open some colour pens and enjoy this webinar and taking some notes from it. I also said at the beginning, thank you for choosing to be with us. And you have made a choice today. You've chosen to sit through an hour of my ramblings and Omar's ramblings as well, but I'm sure you're going to get something from it. And what I'd ask you to do is just continue making positive choices in your business right now. It's really easy, and I'm sure you've come across people in your organization, in your life, in your sort of social networks that are often full of blame, excuses, and denial. And the easiest analogy that I've been using over the last few weeks is, the news I switched on last weekend, and there was pictures of people down on the beach having barbecues, and pictures of large groups congregating in town squares, and those people were in continual denial of the situation we all find ourselves in, the current pandemic. And I'm sure if they were approached by those in authority, they'd probably come up with 1 or 2 excuses as to why it didn't apply to them, and probably blame other people for it was their idea, it was their suggestion, we came out. And we all do it. We're hardwired at times as human beings to sort of go on the defensive and to think of excuses, blame, and denial as to why we find ourselves where we are and we're doing what we're doing. Instead of thinking, why me, what I'd love to encourage you to do right now is take ownership, accountability, and responsibility for yourself, for your business, and for the decisions and the direction you want to drive your business in going forwards. If you think of when you were younger and you were at school and on the playground, or even now in your social networks, who do you want to spend time with? Do you want to spend time with somebody who is full of energy, or do you want to spend time with somebody who's sort of negative and lacking that energy and that drive to move things forwards? It's about having the energy right now to tackle the challenges head on, to find out the information from others, experts. You've come on the webinar today to find out all about furlough from Omar, to find out the facts and to take responsibility for taking key decisions and critical decisions, and sometimes difficult decisions that are not always going to be, they hadn't always planned, but actually taking ownership, accountability and responsibility for driving your business forwards. And I do love that first word, the ownership. We've all got a ship, and at the moment we might find our ship or our yacht in stormy waters. You know, the storms are hitting, the waves and the sort of crashing against the side of the boat. And it may be a time right now to put the anchor down of your boat and just to hold still, put things in place, and to wait for the storm to pass. But equally, you've got other people on the boat you can get help, support from. You might go and get a tugboat and get support to take your boat in a different direction. But you have got the ability to change direction of whichever way you're traveling with your business. And now we've got an unprecedented situation where we've got time as business owners to actually make key decisions in our business, to change direction and to move it forwards. Transition, though, is always really hard. And I don't know if you've seen this transition curve. It's by a guy called John Fisher from 2012. He sort of first published it in 1990. But it just shows a journey that many of us, our staff, our friends, our colleagues, are all on right now. I worked in local government for 15 years myself. And I would say every 2 years we went through a transition of some kind of restructure, where they were trying to do more for less. And so some of the times we're in transition, we're expecting the change. But when the change comes, it's much more significant than we anticipated. But in the situation we find ourselves in right now, we didn't expect any of this change to happen to us. We didn't think there'd be such challenging circumstances, such an impact on our business, on our lives. And so we just need to think about where we are and where our colleagues are, where our staff are, where our friends are, where our customers are on this journey right now, and where people's mindset is. We've heard a lot about mental health over the last few weeks, and we need to just bear in mind where people are, and also accept that people may deal with this in different ways. We can see there somebody's going off into denial, head in the sand, not really knowing what to do. There's people who are sort of disillusioned and may make the decision right now to exit their market, to decide to come out of the business or change careers or change the focus of their business completely. But whatever we do, now is an opportunity. Whatever decisions you make about your business right now will affect the future of your business and the future career you have, and your life in general. So now is a real key time to take some time out to sort of evaluate where you want to be, where you want your business to go in the future, and how you want to drive your business going forwards. And to that end, there's a great guy called Jim Rohn. He's a great coach. He inspired Brad to set up ActionCOACH many years ago. And he's got 2 quotes, which I absolutely love. One is about don't wish your life was easier, but wish you were better at it. And the other one is to work harder on yourself than you do on your job. And that really is all about mindset. It's about having that strength, that mindset to drive your business forwards and to work on yourself. Because if you work on yourself, you will start to get by default the results you want from your business. It's about having that really strong mindset. Glenn's just prompted me. We've got a poll running in the background of this webinar. So please do take time to answer the questions. We'd love to know how your business is doing right now. What do you have a plan for the next 90 days? And what has been the biggest impact on your business so far? It's always really interesting to find out the results of these as we go along, and to sort of look at them at the end, just to see where people who are listening to us right now, how things are going in their business and what the impact has been. And most of all, do you have a plan? It's a really crucial question. Do you have a plan for your business right now to drive it forward over the next 90 days? So please do take time to answer those questions. And I say, if you're listening to us on social media through Facebook, again, take time to put comments in the Facebook. We can respond to those to you as well. As ActionCOACH, we are often working with a range of different businesses, and we don't profess to have an in-depth knowledge of every single business we go into in terms of how it works. So, I mean, I can go and work with a funeral director. I'll be working with somebody like Omar in the HR spheres and area of work. I could be working with a florist. But the principles are, whichever business we're working with, there are the basics of finance, HR, what else was I going to say? I've lost my train of thought now. Marketing, knowing your figures, all sorts of basics of business that we are supporting owners in. And often we'll come along to a business owner and we'll have a chat to them. The first question I always ask any business owner is, so what was the dream when you set your business up? Why did you buy the business? Why did you set this business up? And then my second question is, well, what has the journey been like? And through having some of those initial conversations with the business owners, we find that there are areas of the business where they could do things differently, or may not be working as they planned or working to the best. They may be in trouble, but not aware of those challenges they have in their business right now. There are other business owners where they are aware of some of the challenges. Maybe some of the team aren't working as they want them to be working, or maybe they've got issues in with their supply, with some of their customers. So they're in trouble. They're trying to put things in control, but they still haven't quite got the business to where they want it to be. But right now, I'm sure we're all aware, we're coming across many, many businesses who have lost control through no fault of their own. But the great news is, by taking this time now to plan and to seek the support and advice of professionals who are out there, such as Omar, and we've had other experts on digital marketing, on talking to accountants in terms of cash flow. There are people there and ourselves who can help support you in turning your business around right now, to avoid you going down that curve into liquidation and losing your business altogether. So now is the time to take time out and think about how you can drive your business forwards. Just before I go on to very briefly the 11 steps, Glenn, are there any questions coming in so far that I've not seen?
No questions yet, but as you were saying earlier, obviously anyone joining us on social media, feel free to pop in the comments box where you're from, what your business is. Love to engage with everyone. Great,
thanks, Glenn. So I'm very quickly just going to go into 11 steps, and then I'll hand over the reins to Omar. So the first step from us is all about communication, and it doesn't matter what other steps I talk about, they always link back to communication. And right now, panic and worry never helps. It's all about having a positive mindset and staying above the line, taking ownership, accountability, and responsibility for your business. It's also really important right now to have clear vision and goals. So it comes back to that planning slide right at the very beginning. And also it's about leading your people to survival. It's about, as a business owner, taking charge of your business and making those key decisions in a positive mindset. And it's about communicating with your team, communicating with your customers, with your networks, your suppliers and your stakeholders, but most importantly, with your community. And we were doing a webinar a few days ago with a digital marketing expert, and she said, when we start to come out of lockdown and start going into mobilization and start preparing for going back to trading normally, people are going to be trying to decipher in a digital world which businesses are actually still operating and which are not operating anymore. And so actually now is a key time to have that positive communication and communicate with your community on a regular basis. Even if you don't have much to say, keep that communication going, keep promoting yourself. And I'll talk a bit more about marketing in a minute. But also sometimes less news is better. So we all want to make sure we're going and finding out the information, finding out the facts, making sure we're basing our decisions on the right information. But what we don't need necessarily is a rolling newsreel all the time of what's going on in the world. We need to make sure we take time out, make sure that we are balancing our mental health, our work-life balance, and just making sure that we're basing our information on the right information. Now's also a time to think about your business model. There's a great formula up there. D times V plus F must be greater than I. And you're probably thinking, what on earth am I talking about? But that is a formula for change. The R is the resistance we're all facing right now in the business community, in the economy that we're all trying to trade and operate in. The D is the dissatisfaction and the vision. So dissatisfaction times the vision. So it's about having that clear vision of goals, as I talked about at the top of the slide there. But the most important thing on that slide is the first steps. The F is your first steps. So your first steps need to be bigger than the resistance, or greater than the resistance you're facing right now. And people have been talking to me about, well, what could those first steps be? And it might be quite a significant change to your business, but it may also be evaluating all aspects of your business, everything from your suppliers to your customers, to your operating systems, to your staff, and how you manage your staff and whether you put them on furlough and all sorts of other things. But it could be 100 small changes. It doesn't have to be one significant change in your business right now. But what it is about considering what is the biggest opportunity for your business right now, and how can you leverage that and scale it up. And just a quick example, my daughter goes to ballet every Saturday, or she did go to ballet in the local community hall every Saturday morning. And I was talking to her ballet tutor about 5 weeks ago, and they're now delivering those classes online. And that's been a great opportunity for her and her business, because not only is she planning to go back to the community halls when we come out of lockdown, but she's now got a whole range of services that she's offering online Monday to Friday. And not just to the sort of primary age children that go along, but also to adults. She's doing Keep Fit. And she had a BFO when she was talking to me only a few days ago. She said, Steve, I'm really enjoying doing this online, and I'm desperate to get back into the community centre. But guess what? She's going to carry on delivering both services. She's going to carry on her online business, and she's going to deliver in person at the weekends when she can get the community hall. So she's now got 2 different markets that she's appealing to. And what I would say, and I've said to many people on many of these webinars, is whatever we face when we come out of lockdown, the world in which we operate, the way in which we operate, and the way in which our business operates going forward is going to change significantly. We're not going back to the old way of doing things. We're going back into a new, well, going forward into a new world. So think about right now, what is the biggest opportunity for your business? And then think about how you can leverage and scale that up. And a very quick example for that is for us here at ActionCOACH. We started doing these webinars 3-4 weeks ago. We were using Zoom. We were getting a reasonable number of people signing in. But then we thought, well, how can we make best use of my hour, my time, Glenn's time, doing the same thing and scaling that up? Which is why now many of you are able to listen to us on Facebook. We're now broadcasting live on Facebook. And we're also now publishing these webinars onto YouTube. So we've scaled the same 1 hour, the same input from me, and to try and reach more people and to help more businesses by benefiting from these webinars. So how can you scale the opportunities in your business? So virtual is the new norm right now, and I'm not going to touch too much on this because I think sort of don't want to overlap with what Omar's doing, but it is about just considering your staff right now, considering how you can make best use of technology, thinking about how you can have human interaction, how you're going to manage your staff in a different way. Most importantly, make sure they're not feeling alone. So regular communication. We at ActionCOACH have a catch-up meeting every morning. We're making great use of WhatsApp. We also, sort of regularly communicating on the phone. So make sure your staff don't feel alone, and just consider what things you need to put in place, what processes in terms of meetings, reports, and planning, and being honest about how that's working for you, and be prepared to keep changing your systems and your processes in terms of working in a virtual world. Cash flow is really important right now. Cash is king. So it's sort of just reviewing what cash you have available for your business right now over the next 3 months to make sure you've got the cash flow. There is a great and unprecedented amount of support from the government right now. I've been talking to business colleagues just this morning who've got their business interruption loans through from up to £10,000. So that's great for them. So there is support out there, but it is also a good time just to think about how you can cut some of your costs if possible. And if you have access to credit right now, think about how you can extend your credit, even if you don't use it, to extend the availability of it to you right now. It's also important to have conversations with your suppliers and your partners, just to think about how you can extend your credit terms and your arrangements with them, and also being flexible with those who you supply as well. I've touched on the government programs and I'll come back to that at the very end. And also think about what you can postpone right now. I was working with, still am, but was having conversations face-to-face with a manufacturer in Birmingham about 6 weeks ago, and they had placed an order from a big new piece of machinery from Malaysia. I was in touch with them a couple of weeks ago, and it's great to hear that they've actually postponed the delivery of that piece of machinery, that it's essential for them to expand on their capacity to produce the products they're making, but they've postponed delivery, and actually by doing that have postponed the first payment for that new piece of machinery. So they've just thinking about cash flow and what commitments they've got and how they've managed to expand that going forwards or extend it. Marketing must shift. I don't know if you've reviewed your marketing recently. We're talking about how you can delay and cut back in your business, but the one thing I always say is do not cut back on your marketing right now. Your marketing has to shift. You need to have at least 6 different marketing strategies in your business right now. Think about how you can market with compassion. Think about how your message needs to change right now. It's an opportunity to really sort of build that relationship up with your clients right now, to get to know them, to get to know what their needs are. It's also making sure you have marketing that's got a sense of urgency. And the phrase I love most of all is making the virtual visible right now. So how can you make your marketing stand out over and above a really competitive sort of environment online? So what USPs do you have that you're sort of shouting about right now in your business? What guarantees do you offer right now? So it's thinking about your marketing going forwards and making yourself stand out. And I talk about 6 marketing strategies. Think of a table. If you go into McDonald's or Costa and sit at one of those tables that's got a single pedestal, if you lean on it, it wobbles straight away. With your marketing strategy, you want to make sure it's on firm footings. So have 6. Think about networking, think about direct mail, think about emails, think about social media. So try and think of all the different ways in which you could promote your business right now. Have you reviewed your website? What is the key message on your website right now? And what does it say about your business and how you're operating? And now even more than ever, it's about knowing your numbers. I was working with a business a few months ago, and they'd taken on a new sales exec in that business to generate sales for them, which was great. And I said, well, what sort of targets has this guy got? The gentleman they recruited to come from the car sales industry. And he said, well, I haven't thought that far. I just wanted to recruit somebody to help promote our business and generate sales. And I said, well, do you know how much you need to make each week or each quarter to keep your business going? No, was the answer. Being brutally honest, he didn't have a real grip of his figures. And I said, well, how many sales does this guy need to make every week to cover his own salary even? And he hadn't thought it through that far. So now it's really important to have a real grip on your figures every single week. You know, no matter how much you've got in the bank, know, you know, sort of what sort of figures you need to keep your business afloat right now, what your costs are, and have a real idea of how much you're investing in your marketing, and also know which marketing strategies are working for you, because money is tight. So test and measure your marketing. Think about which strategies are working, what return you're getting on your investment of each of your marketing strategies, and don't be afraid to stop some marketing strategies and invest in others to really drive your business forwards. Just touching on sales briefly, sales must continue. You need to change the tone of your sales right now. Think about the you know, selling with compassion. Relationships are really important right now. Get to know your customers. Go back to your existing customers. I'll touch on that in a moment. And have a serious focus on your customer service right now. So think about you know, how can people get in touch with you? I'm sort of going on to my next point really, but keeping all your existing customers is an absolute must. Go above and beyond with your existing customers right now. I was talking to somebody a couple of days ago, and they were talking about when they go to do their essential food shop in Tesco's, they're going to pick up 10 chocolate bars. And what are they going to do? They're going to go to their existing customer base and sort of identify their 10 key customers, their 10 best prospects or best customers that they've had buying from them in the past, and just write them a letter, send them a chocolate bar. When we're sitting at home right now, sort of, you know, sort of restricted to our own homes, what more could be appreciated than a chocolate bar to the post from somebody you've bought from in the past? So go above and beyond and think about those critical non-essentials. Now it's really about the time to build loyalty, to build a rapport with your existing customers, and go back to your lists of those people who've bought from you in the past. They are your raving fans, or you want them to be your raving fans. So, you know, so really do go back to them and make the most of their loyalty to you right now. They're also your cheapest customers because they've already bought from you. You've already put that investment into them as customers in the past. In terms of getting most from your people, and I won't say too much on this because again, I don't want to cover what Omar might well be touching on, but it is about mindset. It is about being seen to lead from the front. And absolutely now is a really critical time to think about the training and the skill set your staff have. And while they're on furlough, if they're on furlough, they can still do training. And I'll say no more than that because I'm sure Omar will touch on it. But, you know, whilst you've got staff who are working for you, whilst you yourself and perhaps, you know, don't have the number of customers and aren't as busy as perhaps you were when you were going to the office or the wherever you're trading from in the past, now is the time to focus on yourself, to invest in yourself. And we've often talked to business owners who said, I just don't have the time. Well, maybe now is the time when you do have that extra time to invest in yourself, to invest in your business, and to think about how you can drive your business forwards. And when it comes to staff, do try and keep as many as you can. But equally, there are people out there, some great employees out there right now who, through no fault of their own, are on the job market. But equally, think about the cost of letting staff go and then having to invest in training and recruitment later on when you want to drive your business forwards. So do, if you can, use furlough, and I'll let Omar tell you more about that in a moment. Make use of that opportunity that the government have given you and keep as many staff as you can if possible. So just a couple more points really. But step 9 is all about building a strong mindset. So having those daily rituals, thinking about default diary, thinking about having a set place in your home to work from, thinking about this as an opportunity and not a crisis. And every day, try and find the small wins. So what was it you did yesterday that was successful, that made your business a success and made you feel positive about your business and about yourself? Every day when I put my children to bed, I ask them to think of positive affirmations to themselves. So what are you? And sometimes they try and trick me. So my daughter will say, well, I'm your favorite. But it is about thinking, well, what are you? You know, I'm clever, I'm beautiful, I'm kind, I'm generous, I'm happy. So getting your children and getting yourself to think about those positive mindsets, those positive affirmations, and then also think about what did you do today that made today better? And you can take into tomorrow and make tomorrow even better. What were you successful at today? So I ask my kids every day, say, what 3 things did you learn today? And then how are you going to make tomorrow even better as a result of those 3 things that you learned today that you didn't know when you woke up this morning? Find the small wins every day because they'll make tomorrow even better. And as I said earlier on, sometimes no news is good news. My partner's in the process of buying a house. Everything's been put on hold. And we've had the conversation. Do you want to go and contact your mortgage provider? Do you want to contact the bank? Do you want to contact the builder? Actually, what is going to happen if she does find those answers? She's either not going to find the answers, or it might not be the news that she wants. So actually sitting still at the moment and just getting on with other things and focusing on her time on things that you can change and can do something about is perhaps the best use of your time right now. So if you can't do something about it, park it, put it in a box, and come back to it later. Spend your time right now, use it on things you can do, things, making a difference to you and your business and driving your business forwards. Touching briefly on planning, if you haven't got a 90-day plan for your business right now, now is the time to make one and put one together. And we've got, we do 90-day planning webinars. We've got another webinar at 2 o'clock today, which is focused much more on planning. So we'll, please do join us for that. But do think about what you're going to market and what you're going to sell in the future. And is it different to what you're doing now? Think about how you're going to deliver and charge for your services going forwards. And think about survival right now. Don't think about expanding your business right now, but just think about how can you change and how can you plan for the next 90 days. A great little story. I was working with a florist based in Birmingham, and I was talking to her just before Mother's Day. She was worried about the number of orders that were going down in terms of weddings, funerals, and other events. But she had Mother's Day that coming weekend. So what she did was reduce the size of her bouquets so that she could supply more to more customers, but also then added other products. So she was adding chocolate, she was adding teddy bears, adding other things as well, greeting cards to people who wouldn't necessarily be able to get out. But now she's taken that one step further because supplies of flowers are drying up. She's providing pot plants and things, but she's also teamed up with a local grocer. So she's now supplying food boxes, sort of vegetable boxes, fruit boxes, along with greeting cards. So she's doing that side as well. So she's helping another business out, but also thinking about how she can change her business model slightly. But it is thinking about how you're going to change your business, how you're going to deliver your services, and it is about survival right now, driving things forwards. So I'm just going to now hand over to Omar. I've touched briefly on furlough, but I'm going to let him, as the expert, tell you a lot more about furlough and how that can work for your business right now. Over to you, Omar.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, hi everyone. So yeah, as mentioned before, Omar Rashid from the HR department. So I'm sure you've heard a lot about the F word that's been going around, furlough. So what is furlough? Steve, I can't seem to control the slides.
Oh,
so
bear with me, Omar. Let me just sort that out for you. Bear with me. So you keep talking, I'll sort that out for you.
Yeah, so with furlough, you know,
Omar, you're on mute, just so you're aware.
Okay, so what is furlough? So furlough is actually an American term. So it's not a new term. We've probably heard about it very recently, but it's actually an American term, and it's normally used therefore when it's a temporary suspension of employment for a specific period of time during which an employee doesn't receive any salary or any wages. So obviously what we normally would have prior to all of this in certain contracts would be a layoff clause where you can lay off your staff temporarily. So what the government are then obviously brought in this unprecedented time is the new coronavirus, the COVID-19 job retention scheme, which centers around furloughing your staff, which I'm now going to go into. So which businesses are eligible? So essentially all businesses based in the UK, and that includes businesses from a range of sectors, varieties, different sort of, whether it's charities, recruitment agencies, cleaning company. It includes all businesses. When it comes to public sector, the expectation with them is that they will continue as normal, given that most of them are key workers and provide that key service. But other than that, a lot of the businesses are eligible for furlough. You must have and started a PAYE payroll scheme as at the 28th of February. And I'll tell you why shortly, why that is important. Latest guidance also states that you must be enrolled for PAYE online. If you haven't done so, then this is something that can be set up within 10 days. And you must have a UK bank account. So that's the sort of the started criteria for businesses that are eligible for furlough. So which employees are eligible? So they have to be on the payroll as at the 28th of February. So my thinking around that is that the government obviously didn't want for this process to be therefore abused when they announced the scheme on the 23rd of March. So if you have started someone, if you've taken on someone post 28th of February, unfortunately, they wouldn't be eligible to be furloughed. And For those, because since the 28th of February, before the government announced the furlough scheme, if you had placed them on unpaid leave, you can actually furlough them back. If prior to the government announced on the 23rd of March that you'd made them redundant or they had left since that date, but they were on your payroll as of the 28th of Feb, you can actually put them back on furlough, providing that you've rehired them as well. And it also includes those on agency contracts. So that's where if they're on PAYE with the agency, even though they're not working. Those that are on flexible or 0-hour contracts, salary directors can also be furloughed, office holders. Very recently, this is the guidance that's come out. Even if your nannies or your cleaners, as long as they're on your PAYE, you can actually furlough them as well. Apprentices are now also part of the scheme, salaried partners of LLPs, and also those on fixed term contracts as well. So those are employees that are eligible to be furloughed. So once you furlough your staff, what is it that's reimbursed? What is it that you get back, or what is it that you are furloughing for? So it is 80% of their usual wage costs, subject to the usual deductions. So that also, there is also a cap of 2,500 plus national insurance and the pension contribution as well. So it's one or the other that you can get reimbursed for. The scheme started backdated back to the 1st of March, is for 3 months. Excuse me. So you can furlough during any of the time within the 3 months. However, the individual has to be furloughed for a minimum of 3 weeks. If you call them back beforehand, then the expectation is that you will then pay them for that period of leave, but the minimum requirement is for 3 weeks. You as employers, you can top it up to 100%. It's not mandatory for you to do so. And if you do, that additional 20% is not something that you're able to reclaim back. It is just the 80%. Okay, so placing employees on furlough, this is probably the most important thing throughout the whole process. You have to seek agreement from your employees who can refuse. You can't just say to them, you are now on furlough, and that's it. This is a new law that's coming. This is a change, a fundamental change to the normal terms and conditions. So you need to seek agreement from your employees. Seek out that through written confirmation. When you are deciding who to furlough, the normal equality discrimination laws will apply. So bear that in mind. But on the flip side, if you are thinking about furloughing, and you may want to consider maybe concentrating on those first that are maybe from that are part of the vulnerable people that have been highlighted by the government that should be self-isolated, that would be deemed as a satisfactory measure to take. So like I mentioned before, to be eligible, you need to keep a record, a written record confirming that who's been furloughed, and you need to keep a record communication of this. The latest guidance states that should be kept for 5 years. So that making sure that's giving HMRC that time frame, if needs be, to then come back and audit all of your claims as well. So you make sure you do seek that agreement, make sure that it is in writing, that your employee has agreed to it, and you keep that record as well. Agreements are available. I would strongly advise you that you get these agreements signed and drafted by HR professionals, lawyers. I've seen the odd one on Google. Your accountant might say that they may supply you with one. With all due respect, you need to get these agreements drafted from professionals, so that there are certain clauses in there that not only protects you, but also protects your employees as well. Okay. And the other thing is, you don't have to place all your employees on furlough. It may well be that there's a certain department or only certain workers that you need to place on furlough, and that you've got the requirement for others to do the work. Now remember, furlough isn't just there as an option. The default state is that you would only apply furlough if in a normal circumstances you'd probably be thinking that, okay, this employee or these employees would otherwise be made redundant and without a job. The scheme has been brought in to support employers keeping their employees in employment. And whilst the employee is on furlough, they cannot do any work for the employer. I'll go on to that a bit more in the later slide as well. So how is it reimbursed? So we know that an online HMRC portal is to be introduced. We know as of yesterday that this portal they are planning to have this ready for as of the 20th of April. We're waiting for further guidance on how that will be in operation. So we expect, therefore, then the payments will start coming in from the end of April. The terminology used is a grant. So at this moment in time, we expect that the requirement isn't there for you to pay back. It can include past overtime, compulsory commission and fees. This is actually being changed. Previous guidance suggested that this wouldn't be included, but there seems to have been a bit of a U-turn on that. And you then, once you've made your claim, you can then make a claim once every 3 weeks. So it's not a weekly thing that you need to do. So you may need to consider any employees that are used to getting paid weekly. You may want to start thinking about saying to them that, look, it may well be that we need to change that to a monthly figure or a monthly frequency in line with how you get your money reimbursed. So what we do know is that this is the sort of information that you will be required when you make your claim. So your EPAYE reference number, the number of employees being furloughed, the claim period. So this is the start and the end date of the claim that you're claiming for. The amount claimed. So you might want to start now already having that conversation with whoever does your payroll, whether that's your accountant or whether you've got an in-house payroll or an external payroll bureau. Start thinking about the sort of claims and the amounts that you need to be claiming back for. They'll be able to calculate that for you. Your account number, contact number, your bank details as well. So as I mentioned, you need to calculate the amount that you are claiming, and HMRC have initially said that, look, this will be done on trust. But they retain the right that they will retrospectively audit your claim. So make sure that you do everything legitimately, everything that you claim, whichever employees, everything is clearly documented as well. Okay, so I'm just going to go through a series of general FAQ questions that have been asked us over the last couple of weeks, just to kind of give you a bit of an idea as well. So common question is, like I've already covered, do I have to top up the salary to 100%? There is no obligation, but if you don't and you are only going to be paying them the 80% to claiming back, again, you do need to gain that agreement as well. Do I have to offer furlough? It isn't a mandatory requirement, but again, it will be deemed as what is reasonable. So is it reasonable for you to offer furlough when the option is there, rather than making people go on unpaid leave, or in certain instances make them redundant as well? Again, it's about what is reasonable. Okay, can I rotate staff on furlough or furlough them more than once? Yes, you can, but again, remember, it has to be for a minimum of 3 weeks at a time. So if you think you're going to rotate your staff, or maybe you've got some work coming in and then you might think that might dry up, just think about that it has to be for a minimum of 3 weeks for them to be eligible and for you to claim furlough money back. After furlough, can I still make staff redundant? The answer is yes. If at the end of all of this, when the government finishes the scheme, for whatever reason, that the business isn't there, the income isn't there, you can't afford to keep your staff on, yes, you can actually make them redundant, but there are other options to review that you can look at as well. That maybe you can agree mutually and a temporary further extension of them having reduced pay. Maybe they'd work reduced hours. Again, sort of like Steve's alluded to, look at how your business, you might want to change your business around a little bit more, continue with what you've kind of done temporarily to kind of see if that income may come and generate as well. But ultimately, yes, you can still make your staff redundant after the furlough scheme is over. Okay. So if you're a charity and you receive public funds to run a service and employ staff, can they be furloughed? So the guidance is quite clear, which is that public sector staff or any other businesses that will continue to receive public funds are expected to continue their staff to be employed, so that furlough shouldn't be an option. The guidance isn't clear around if you only receive part funding for a role, but you then may want to consider other options, which is maybe only keep them employed for the amount of hours that the funding may cover them. Okay. Can my staff volunteer whilst they're on furlough? Yes, they can, as long as they're not providing services to the employer or generates revenue for it. So that's the key issue. Don't think that actually, I'll make someone furloughed, but then they can come back and volunteer and kind of do some of the main duties or some of the duties that they would normally get paid to do. That's not the idea of the furlough scheme. Okay, I have an employee at home looking after the children. Can I furlough them? So the recent guidance come out has said, yes, you can. So they can be furloughed if they are at the moment at home looking after the children. They may be on unpaid leave or utilising their annual leave, but you can now actually revert them to be furloughed. I have an employee at home shielding. Can I furlough them? So technically, yes, you can. Where I've put it depends, the guidance is clear around that if they weren't at home shielding and if they were coming to work, but in those circumstances you would have then furloughed them, then in those instances, then yes, whilst they're at home shielding, that you can then actually revert them to being furloughed as well. So that's the kind of key thing to think about, that if they weren't at home shielding, would they be able to work from home? Would they still be safe enough for them to come into the workplace? Would you have work for them to do? If the answers are yes, then whilst they're shielding at home, you wouldn't be expected to furlough them. Okay, very common question is, so I have a worker, in this instance I've got an admin worker that normally works 5 days a week, but due to the downturn in business, I only need them to work a couple of days a week. Can I furlough them for the remaining 3 days? Unfortunately, the answer is no. The guidance is clear that if you furlough them, they cannot do any work for you at all. The best way I always say is, look, if you're furloughing someone, tell them to go home, put their feet up, don't check their phones, email, nothing like that. Just literally kind of switch off. So they can't be furloughed, even if they go down for part-time. Okay. If my employee has 2 jobs, if I furlough them, will it impact on their other job? So no, it wouldn't. The guidance is clear. Each job is kept separate. So you can have a situation where you may furlough them in your job, but in the other job, they may not be furloughed and they get paid normally. So each job, if an employee gets furloughed from each job, there's no link. So each job, they can be furloughed 80% of their wages or a maximum cap of 2,500. The guidance is pretty clear in that respect. Okay, can my employee who are furloughed get a job with a new employer? Again, this is just been latest guidance, and it's been clarified that yes, they can if the contract permits them to do so, so as long as there's no breach. Now, in most circumstances, you'd probably have a clause in your contract that will say that you're not allowed to do any work without letting the employer know beforehand or getting permission from the employer. So in that instance, obviously have that agreed and have that documented that, that is something that they, you're happy for them to work. So essentially an employee could at one stage have 180% of income, 100% from another employer, as well as 80% of their furlough from yourselves. Can my employee undertake training? So as Stephen mentioned before, yes, they can. But that needs to be kept separate to the furlough and paid at a national minimum wage or national living wage. So that is, again, an opportunity that you might think, okay, we furloughed them, but like Steve mentioned before that they never had time to do some training. Here's some opportunity to kind of develop them, keep them motivated, keep their skills up to date as well. But you would have to pay them separately to the furlough, and that's not something that you can then reimburse or claim back. Okay, do I have to pay the wages first? So it depends. So if I give you an example now, pending to obviously confirmation, we know that we can apply 20th of April. You could have a situation where if your normal payroll is the last day of April, you could potentially claim for on the 20th of April, claim for this period from the 1st of April to the 31st of April, 30th of April, have that money received in your bank account and then paid to your employees. So it just depends on when your payroll is and the sort of times that you're claiming for as well. And I think that's why they do allow you to claim once every 3 weeks. So once you've done this for May, you can claim in the 3rd week of May or 3 weeks after. Again, claim for the whole period of May, receive that money and then pay your salary. So that's something that you need to factor in. If you're used to paying your employees on a weekly basis, you might want to agree with them that to move to a monthly basis so that you can actually claim the money in from the grant first to pay them if you're having issues with cash flow. Okay, so what rights does my employee have whilst on furlough? So all their rights are maintained. They still remain an employee with yourselves. It's not like they're on a temporary break from yourselves. So all of their rights in respect to continuous service, statutory leaves, statutory sick pay, holidays, everything is maintained. And on the flip side, you also, the rights still remain for you that if needs be, you can dismiss them, still make them redundant. If whilst they're on furlough, start going on social media and start saying XYZ about yourselves, about your business, you still have that right to actually still discipline them, and if needs be, if it's gross misconduct, terminate them as well. So all of those rights still remain whilst your staff are on furlough. What happens if we cannot manage annual leave requests when everyone returns? So obviously everyone's on furlough, any annual leave sort of going to be added on. You're then coming back to a situation maybe in 3 months' time, everyone still has all of their annual leave to take, and you're thinking, oh my God, how am I going to fit all of that in? So you can actually now carry over 4 weeks off your leave, and you've got sort of like 2 years to kind of get all of that in place. So again, the guidance is kind of there to help you, support you, manage you, and plan all of that annual leave. So it's 4 weeks out of the 5.6, so the 1.6 weeks, which is the bank holidays, that you cannot carry over, but the 4 weeks of leave you can. Okay, so I have employees on variable pay and hours. So if they've been engaged 12 months prior to the claim, it's the higher of the same month's earnings for the previous year. So if you're claiming for someone this April, if they earned more April last year, that's what you can claim for. If it's less than that, then it's the average monthly earnings for the year. If you've had someone less than a year, then it's the average earnings since they started work. And if they only started in February, then you use a pro rata amount for those earnings. That's the sort of 80% that you would calculate that they would be furloughed on and what you would claim back on. When are staff entitled to statutory sick pay? So I always get these questions asked around, can they furlough or they're on statutory sick pay? So staff are entitled to statutory sick pay if they need to self-isolate because they have coronavirus. They have coronavirus symptoms. The current guidance is that they self-isolate. If someone in the household has those symptoms as well, so that they need to self-isolate, or they've been told to self-isolate by a doctor or an NHS 111 doctor. So just in summary, if someone is currently off sick that you would have furloughed, continue to pay it on the SSP. Once that statutory sick pay is, once that time has finished and they're ready to come to work, you can then place them on furlough as well. So just bear that in mind as well. Family leave, so again, for those who need to take maternity leave, that still remains as normal. So 2 weeks off that they would have to mandatory have, 4 if they work in a factory or a workshop. The same rules apply if they're eligible for maternity allowance or statutory maternity pay. If you offer enhanced contractual pay, you can actually claim that back as part of this new coronavirus scheme. And the same applies for contractual adoption, maternity and shared paternity pay. And it also doesn't prohibit any guidance there if women want to agree, mutually agree with yourselves to come back early from the maternity pay and maternity leave and then be furloughed. So that the guidance does allow that. So what can you do as an employer? So now Steve's kind of did cover some of these, but the main thing is the communication is key. Can't stress, just keep your staff up to date. It is unprecedented. Sometimes you won't have the answer, but just check in on your staff. Keep that communication dialogue alive, whether it's weekly Zoom calls, WhatsApp, email, telephones. Just keep your staff up to date where things are. From my experience, a lot of staff from clients, they're not surprised when it has come to furlough, and a lot of them have accepted the 80% furlough, and they actually are relieved that actually there is something rather than them losing their jobs. Review all the alternatives. So like I said, look at, is there any way you can change your business around? The great example Steve gave around with that florist. Have you got all your setup? Can they work from home? Is it safe for them to work from home? Is your IT setup, is your cybersecurity setup safe for you to do so? Is the work classed as key work? If they are, have you got the letters? Have you got that document that if they do get stopped, that they can show that they are doing key work? If they come into the workplace, can you do everything that you can from what the government is saying? Provide them with hand wash, sanitizers. Can you adhere to the 2-meter social distancing rule? And ensure that, look, contracts and agreements are in place. This is a great time for you to kind of review your contracts to kind of see actually is everything up to date, and your agreements that if you are going to furlough them in the future, whilst this is still on, everything is in place, that it is in writing as well. Okay, just quickly I'll touch on for those if they are self-employed. So a scheme has come out for those who are self-employed. So it is a grant worth 80%. Again, similar to employees being furloughed, so 80% of your monthly income capped at $2,500 per month. It's calculated taking average over the last 3 years, and they can claim. So this is the interesting one. They can claim grants and continue to do business as well, simply because actually you're not going to get paid or contacted by the HMRC until June. So the guidance does say that it will take into account anything that's worked up until then as well. Scheme is open to anyone with trading profits up to 50K, which covers 95% of self-employed people. And the scheme is only open to those who majority of their income is from self-employment. So if you've got a bit of self-employment 3 days a week and you have a job doing 1-2 days a week, it's going to be from where your income is from the majority, whether you then furlough yourselves from your work, or so that whether you get furloughed or you claim from self-employed. You also need to have submitted a tax return for 2019, and there has been an extension for 4 weeks. I'm not sure what that date is, but I do know, speak to your accountant just to see when that deadline is. You don't need to do anything. So HMRC will contact you directly if you're eligible, and they will give you the details on how to apply for the form online, and then it will go straight into your bank account. And again, it's not going to be set up until the end of June, which is why that flexibility is there for you to continue to do work. So what is the unknown at this moment in time? So we don't know the precise procedure for making the actual claim. We've not seen the actual portal. We do know that it's going to come out for the 20th of April, but we don't know exactly. We do know a bit about that. If your accountant's able to do so on your behalf, can make the claim for you. So start speaking to your accountant if they are the ones that do your payroll. We don't know exactly how long to wait. So you may make the claim as of the 20th, but we don't know exactly when that money will then be deposited into your bank account, whether that will be within 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours, 7 days, or anything like that. So that's at the moment a bit of an unknown. We don't know whether someone who, whilst on furlough, becomes sick, do they then transfer to statutory sick pay? Does that then break up the 3 weeks of furlough, or does that continue as normal? So that at the moment, the guidance isn't clear on there. We don't know whether from a holiday point of view, you've got annual leave booked. Do you then book your holiday? Do you take your holiday? At the moment, the scheme doesn't say that you can reimburse the 80% of what would be holiday. And if that should be therefore reduced as well, that at the moment is a unknown. At the moment, whether an employee can be furloughed simply due to social distancing requirements, at the moment, that is an unknown. We know that those who are caring for children can be furloughed, but not for this actual reason. So that's really what I really wanted to cover. Those are my contact details if you wanted to ask any further questions, or if you just want to, follow up with myself. But thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for Steve and Action Coach for having me on.
Yeah, there's a few questions.
Omar.
I was going to say, there's a few questions come in that you might be able to bat away quickly, Omar. So one was the pay as you earn. What is that reference, and is it different to the normal references? Do you know yet?
That would be something that whoever does your payroll should be able to provide you with. So your accountant or your payroll bureau would be able to advise you on that. If you've currently got a payroll system set up, I'm sure you've got nothing to worry about. Your accountant will be able to confirm that for you, or whoever does your payroll.
Yeah. So the other question was, you mentioned, well, I think you mentioned it on your slide anyway. If we've got, so the question was, if they've got employees and they're backdating it to March, how does that work with the not working bit? In other words, if they were working for you, I guess, from what they're saying, if somebody was working for you all during March, can you still legitimately furlough them for March?
If they were working, no, because they were actually working. You can only claim furlough from the date when they stopped working. Yes, you can backdate to March. The other way I'm trying to understand the question is, if you furlough them from, let's say, well, they weren't working from the 1st of March, as long as they were on your payroll as of the 28th of February, then you can make that claim as well. And when you make your sorry.
Yeah, it seems like the confusion is that when they announced it, they said you could backdate it to the beginning of March, but logically you couldn't have furloughed someone because it didn't exist before the announcement.
Yeah, so if in that instance, you might have agreed that someone is either, look, you've got to make them redundant. So what you can do is then rehire them, and from that date of when you made them redundant, you would then class them as furlough, and then you'd claim back to that date. Or you might have agreed with your employee that, look, from, let's say, the 10th of March, can you just be on unpaid leave? You can then backdate that to the 10th of March to then say, okay, initially you was on unpaid leave, but we will now put you on furlough. Get them to sign, agree from that document that that's what you get 80%. So that's how claiming back, that's how it would work.
Okay. The other question was, if you've got furloughed employees that you're allowed to take another job, do they still have to be available to come back to work at the end of whatever furlough period you've notified them for?
Yeah, so ultimately they're still your employees. So again, obviously the sensible thing would be that the job that they're taking on is obviously a temporary job. And part of that agreement that you consent to will have that condition around, well, yes, as soon as our work picks up, we will give you minimum 24 hours notice that you will then come and return to work for us. And then that message then is also relayed on to someone else that they're working for, that they understand that this is the temporary arrangement that I have to adhere to. Makes
sense. And finally, unless anyone else wants to pop any questions in, there was one on, you mentioned paying training and it needed to be on top of wages, so is that topping up so that it hits the national living wage or the minimum wage, or is that literally on top? So if you're paying someone's salary anyway and that covers minimum wage would you still need
Yeah,
to
so
pay them
it's
on
sort
top?
of, yeah, so the best way to kind of describe it is, let's say, so Steve's on, you furloughed Steve, so you will claim 80% for Steve through the government for the grant. You would get that paid. But then Steve decides to do, let's say, 5 hours of training. You would then pay 5 hours of that training at national minimum wage, so it's on top. So you wouldn't then claim for that. The furlough, the 80% is separate, and then you would pay that national minimum wage at that rate separately. That's what my understanding of the guidance is.
That's great, thank you. Until that last question, it's all going really well. But no, I'm joking. No, it's great, Omar. Thank you so much for your invaluable feedback and contribution. I think what a lot of people do is they're confusing the word furlough with the job retention scheme. You know, and I think it's important to highlight the difference between those two. And it sort of leads me very nicely into the, you know, there is, and we haven't got time to go through it in detail today, but there is so much support from the government out there at the moment. It's unprecedented. As I said right at the beginning, I think Glenn has put a link on our on the question and answer box on this particular webinar, and we'll certainly put it on. It's on our website already. Of all the information we've gathered from the government sources and from other sources around the different types of government supports out there at the moment. We had your details on the screen a moment ago. Omar, no doubt again, if anybody's got any more detailed questions around furlough and the job retention scheme, you know, we've worked with Omar in the past, you know, great source of information for HR issues, technical issues. You know, please do make use of Omar, and we'll make sure your details, Omar, are on our links to this webinar when they're on Facebook and on social media as well. But thank you so much for what you've contributed today. It just shows how complicated the area is. I think it is key to get advice, as I said right at the beginning, before jumping in the pool at the deep end. You know, particularly around HR, because it can come back to bite you in the bum. And I've you know, sort of found that in the past. You make decisions in your, you know, as a business owner or as a senior manager in your organisation, get advice first and make sure you follow that advice to the letter, because it will come back if you don't do it right in the first place. So Omar's details are there. Do make use of Omar and his colleagues. There's a huge amount of support out there from the government, and we'll be putting that on our website. It's already on the website, and putting it in the Q&A box on this webinar. And lastly, before I finish, I'm conscious of the time. We've just gone past midday, but just to say there is a huge amount of support out there from a whole range of organisations. But we at ActionCOACH are really passionate. The reason I get up in the morning every day is to make a difference to at least one organisation, one business owner out there. And I know that Glenn and everyone else at ActionCOACH also has that same passion for wanting to support business owners out there. We normally charge for our coaching, but right now we're offering a free coaching session to any business owner. If you've got questions about what we've covered today or any other aspect of your business, please do get in touch. We'd love to offer you one of our free 1 hour coaching sessions. We're also, this is one of a series of webinars we're offering at the moment. We've got another one this afternoon around business planning. We've got one on systemization coming up. We've got one of making best use of IT coming up next week. So we're continually offering different webinars with other experts coming on, such as Omar, to address different areas of your business right now. And as I said at the beginning, if you haven't got a 90-day plan for your business right now, now is the time to have one. Even if you had a business plan that you wrote for 2020, you wrote it, you know, sort of 6 months ago, you wrote it at the beginning of the year. The world has changed. If you've not already realized, I'm sure you have, the world has changed. The economy in which we're operating in has changed. And now it's about getting a plan in place. And again, if you're a business that's really struggling right now and £150 is beyond the amount you can afford to pay comfortably, don't let that be a barrier to coming and getting in contact with us. We'd love to help you. We do have a number of free but pro bono places on our webinars, on our paid for webinars, to help business owners to get that plan in place. We can talk about money later. Let's just get that plan in place for you and your business right now to help drive your business forwards. And just at a personal level, this afternoon at 6 o'clock, we've got our book club. We're launching a book club where we're reading business books. And if we've talked a bit about trading today, and if you've got staff on furlough, what greater investment in their time right now than to encourage them to join a business book club. We're looking at business books that have got a real link to the current climate and the situation we find ourselves in as business owners right now. And it'd be great to encourage you and your staff to join us for that. And lastly, if you haven't already, please do connect with myself, with Omar, with our organisations, that's HR department and ActionCOACH. You know, find us on LinkedIn, find us on Facebook. We're all putting information out on those formats, on those platforms that can help you and your business going forwards. And as Omar had his email address, our email address is on the screen there, birmingham@actioncoach.com. If you've got any queries, any feedback about how we could improve these webinars going forwards, we're a coaching company and we love to listen to feedback and help improve what we're doing on a daily basis. So please do get back in touch with us as well. So it just remains me to say thank you for joining us today. Stay well, stay indoors where you can, and look after yourselves, put your families first, do everything you can to drive your business forward, to make those key decisions, and most of all, make sure you make informed decisions in your business going forwards. But do stay well, stay safe, and stay indoors. So we thank you for joining us. Thank you, Omar. Thank you, Glenn, for what you've been doing in the background. And if you're watching online, wherever you are in the world, let us know where you are. And again, stay safe. And we look forward to connecting with you again soon. Take care.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks so much.
I think Glenn